My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about the things in Alaska you don't realize, or the things in Anchorage, Alaska specifically, that you don't realize until you travel outside of Alaska. And this is something I became aware of just recently. I took a trip down to Texas, kind of reconnect with some of my roots, and this is something that was kind of near and dear to my heart. So we'll go ahead and talk about this list here. Before we get started, do make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and let's go and jump into it. Number one is that customer service is actually good in other states. And I know I've talked about this before. I don't want to disparage too much of my customer service folks because, I used to serve tables and be in the customer service industry myself while I was up here. I will stop talking smack when you guys start getting your customer service level up to what it is in other states. Okay, I went to Texas and I was just blown away with people being friendly and bubbly when they're talking to you. And you can get some of that up here in Alaska and Anchorage, but it's kind of few and far between. I remember one time I was actually working at a place. I will leave the name off, but I was working at the place. The manager was talking to me, giving like her tips for success. And she said, yeah, what I do is people come in, I kind of suck up to them a little bit, ask them how their day's doing, smile a little. And it's like, you mean like basic customer service type of stuff? So yes, customer service, not really the strong suit up here in Alaska. It's just so you will really notice that when you go and travel outside of the state. Another thing that really stands out to me when you go outside of Alaska is the path of the sun across the sky is really different. And obviously this is going to change a little bit just with the time of year and kind of the arc and everything that it's going to do. But it's really evident, especially during the winter time. I had like the sun going right over the top of me and it was like, man, what's going on? I'm not used to this. And that's definitely something to get used to once you travel outside of the state. One thing to also keep in mind is once you've lived in Alaska for any amount of time, when you go and take a trip outside of Alaska, you're going to almost instantly be aware of just how much better the air quality is in Alaska compared to most other places in the lower 48. Obviously, we are really distant from any big metropolises and manufacturing and all these other things that can really pollute the air, and you can tell the difference. Once you've been up here in Alaska for a bit, you can move down to, or even spend a little bit of time in some of these bigger areas. You can feel the difference almost day one. Another fact that really stands out to me is towns are really spread far apart in Alaska compared to the lower 48. It kind of blew my mind that while I was visiting Texas, a lot of the towns were actually not that far apart from each other at all. I mean, some of them you could not tell just going from one town to the next that there was actually any different community there whatsoever. And there's really no distinct lines in at least the areas I was visiting. Meanwhile, in Alaska, usually you're going to have like a good solid 20-30 minute drive going from one community to the other. And obviously, there's going to be instances where, the border between one community and the other is not particularly well defined, but usually you're going to have a lot of space between towns, communities, and everything else that's out there. So yeah, that's something to get used to. Once you get up here to Alaska, you're going to be traveling, spending a lot more time in the car. Moving on to etiquette as a visitor. It is assumed in Alaska that you're just going to be taking your shoes off when you go into someone's home. And this wasn't necessarily the case. When I was visiting folks down in Texas, it was, I could just like walk around the house like with my shoes on. It was just not a big deal. People actually look at you a little funny if you're like stopping to take off your shoes. In Alaska, we've got so much sand and dirt, mud, depending on the year, and snow that's going to melt and track water into the house that it's just assumed that you're going to be taking your shoes off when you go into the home. So that, again, a little different compared to what you might be used to in Alaska when you go to the lower 48. All right, anyone that's grown up in the South at all is going to appreciate this next one. And that is when you're in Alaska, when it's time to go, you can just go. And from the South, you kind of know what I'm talking about. There's kind of this creep that you have to do in order to get to the door. It's like, well, we're going to go now. And then everyone stands up and it's like another 30-minute conversation at the door. And everyone just kind of stands around now and talks at the door for like 30 minutes before they can actually go. And sometimes that actually goes a little bit longer. You get outside, get to the car, and then everyone starts talking again, like by the car before you actually leave. And this obviously not a very quick or graceful exit. In Alaska, when it's time to go, it is time to go. And that is one of the awesome things about living here. I am definitely not the guest that's going to be staying longer than I am welcome. So yeah, I have no problem at all being like, well, it's time to go, and just straight for the door, and I am out of there 2 minutes later. So when it's time to go, it's time to go. All right, quick pit stop real quick here. For those of you who aren't aware, we do have a monthly meetup for those of you who have recently come up here to Alaska, or, visiting up here in Alaska and trying to get a sense as to, what people are like who actually live up here. If you want information on these monthly meetups, then do feel free to go to our Facebook page that is in the description section down below. Join the Facebook group, and we'll make sure that you get those updates for upcoming events. Obviously, this next one is going to kind of depend on where it is that you're going, but by and large, food and gas is going to be a lot cheaper in the lower 48 than it's going to be in Alaska. That's just a fact of life. The transportation route for getting everything from lower 48 or any other market to Alaska is just going to be longer, so most goods are just going to cost more in Alaska. I know it's a little weird. The gas would be expensive because they extract a lot of oil up here, and you would think, well, it's here, it should be easy enough to get that, maybe some kind of a discount, but no, that's not how it works. It has to go somewhere else, get refined, and then it comes back here. So yeah, we actually end up spending usually more at the gas pump than you would in most other parts of the lower 48. This is another kind of a fact that's going to stand out to you once you go to the store, and that is most places in the lower 48 have a sales tax. And we do have sales tax up here in Alaska as well, but in the municipality of Anchorage, there's no sales tax, and that's where most of your shopping is going to be done. That's just something to get used to in the lower 48. If you're visiting, you're expecting it to be $25. You look down, it's like some weird number. It's like, oh yeah, sales tax. I don't know if you knew this or not, but most cars in Alaska are going to be very, very difficult to keep clean. And I mean, heaven help you if you have a white vehicle. We've got tons of sand and dirt that gets kicked up during the summertime. You've got lots of ice, and again, like a lot of gravel that gets put down, a lot of sand that can kick up a lot of dirt and just make your vehicle look muddy and grungy during the winter months. And it's just very challenging to keep any kind of car clean for any amount of time. It's like maybe a week or something like that. And then if you're really on top of it, you have to take it to the car wash all over again. In the lower 48, it seems like that is a lot easier to do than what it is up here in Alaska. So congratulations, you guys are going to have better looking cars than most of us have here in Alaska. If you are driving anywhere in Alaska, you're going to pretty quickly become aware that if one road goes down, one highway is closed for whatever reason, a lot of the transportation is just going to instantly dry up. And that's really not the case in the lower 48. Usually if a highway is closed, there's going to be a lot of different routes that you can go, choose as an alternative. And that is just not the case in Alaska. And the next thing, kind of like I alluded to right there, is that you just have a lot more options of places you can drive and different routes that you can take to get somewhere. Whereas in Alaska, one bridge is out and it's like, well, I guess we're not going anywhere north for like 2 weeks until this thing is fixed. Last but not least, if you are in Alaska, the odds of you running into someone that you know are a lot better than what they're going to be if you go to the lower 48, just because the population is so much smaller and the number of places you can go to is just a lot more condensed. The odds of you running into people that you know are going to be a lot higher than if you go to the lower 48. I don't know, maybe you're like a really social butterfly though, and you know a whole lot of people in whatever town you're in or city in the lower 48, and you run into people you know all the time. Probably you'd still have a better chance of running into people you know in Alaska though. So this has been the facts about Alaska you're not really going to appreciate until you travel outside of it. I hope it's been useful. If you have any questions about moving to Alaska or real estate in general, do feel free to drop me a line, register on my website down below. I'd be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.